and
Yeah.
and burn it, or is it okay to have a puzzle with missing pieces?
For me, it is okay. Almost all of my puzzles have at least one missing piece because I just knock it onto the floor and then never find it again. I don't care. I don't need perfection.
As far as I'm concerned,
puzzle doers that feel differently?
Yeah.
I'm the only one. I'm the only puzzler.
No. Go ahead, Sherry.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's not even possible to have a puzzle. So,
you cats?
I can't stand puzzles.
I see.
If it has more than two pieces, it's absolutely not okay.
I normally have done puzzles at like houses that I rent with my friends, and there's always several puzzles going on, and there's like dozens of people who swoop in and out. But these, since pandemic, I've been doing them on my own, and it's very different.
Yeah. I just find them very frustrating.
I do too, Cherry. I'm with you on that.
Oh, good.
Well, I'll keep doing my puzzle until we call the meeting, and then I will stop doing it.
Unless it's like, I used to make it a lot in like the baby puzzles where it's like a very big piece where it can only go in one spot. I can do those.
I like the ones that have the board that you put them on and the outline of each piece is there.
Exactly.
Those are perfect.
Those are my speed. Although those puzzle companies are doing well this year. So
yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they have. In fact, for Christmas I had requests for puzzles from one or two people. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I don't know who Ed Ross is.
He's the finance committee.
Okay.
So I think
we can keep going because I know Monette isn't able to join us tonight.
But you're right.
Like everyone else here. So yeah, we can call to order. And I guess we can start off by just welcoming our newest member of the board here. We have Monique. So congratulations, Monique, and welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and hello to everyone.
Yeah, welcome. I'm so glad you're here and you're joining us. And congratulations also to Andrew on your re-election. So yeah. So okay.
I just want to say we have Ed Ross here from the Finance Committee. Ed, thank you very much for filling in. We had a previous FinCom liaison. Usually it's more important that happens before budget time, but we're still sort of in the middle of it. So I appreciate you coming by. If you have questions or anything, let us know.
Will do. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. So I guess just to start us off, the first item is the board secretary election. So I know that Alice was our secretary, but her term ended. So I guess we are just kind of figuring out what we're going to do now, right, Amy? So
yeah.
We're looking for someone to fill in. How does this work, Amy? Can you talk about how this process works?
Sure. So the secretary is the one who submits the minutes. Technically, the chair can also submit the minutes. So it's okay if we don't have a secretary, but we are supposed to have a secretary. Actual minutes are usually taken by Michelle or me, and then those are what get approved and whatnot, and then it's submitted by the secretary or the chair to the town clerk. Normally, we do those full slate of elections in June with new officers, or if there are any. And I think it was just an oversight. In general, you try not to make an officer that might possibly have a term running out. We just sort of kept Alice on last June. So we could run the April and May meeting without a secretary, or have someone just be willing to be the secretary person for at least just May and April and for this month and next month. And then we would have to go through the whole process again in June for the FY22 officers. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Okay. Well, I mean, does anyone have, I mean, I guess I could, Amy, like, you know, in the next couple of months, do it for now. Or unless someone is interested in taking on that role. Andrew, you're muted. Are you, I see the ear.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It sounds like you just have to do sort of a monthly drop off at town hall of the minutes? I mean,
Yeah, you don't even have to drop it off. We send it electronically. It's just getting a signature.
I can do that.
Okay. So would someone like to nominate? We have to go through the whole
Yeah, the whole
process.
thing. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I can nominate Andrew for.
I can second Andrew.
Great, thank you, Sherry. So I'll call through on the screen. So okay, so John,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
and Monique,
Yes.
and I say yes. Does Andrew vote as well? Yes, maybe.
I'll vote
Okay.
for myself,
so.
sure.
Sure.
Yeah, and I say yes as well. Awesome. Okay, so thank you, Andrew, for volunteering for that. And I should have probably said, so yeah, Monique, when we normally, like, the roll call is a little bit like less weird with me calling on, or with someone calling on people, but since we're in this Zoom space, I just call out names so as they appear on my screen. Okay, so thank you, Andrew.
I actually have one more quick question.
Yeah.
Monique, were you actually sworn in?
No.
Okay, so Monique actually can't vote.
Oh, yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
I know it just happened less than a week ago, and there was a flood at town hall over the weekend. So I know things are really crazy right now.
Mhm.
So Monique, you're definitely welcome to be here, but I think technically you're not supposed to vote unless you've been sworn in. So
Perfect.
you
Thank
can
you. And I'm
just
sure I'll
come to-
receive more information on that. I'll be looking out for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Great. Okay. All right. So, okay. So moving on to the approval of the minutes from March 8th, from our last meeting. So did everyone get a copy and get a chance to take a look, or were there any additions or changes or edits?
Not for me.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on any either.
I didn't have any.
Okay.
Move to approve
So,
the minutes as
do we have-
presented. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yep. Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Yep, I'll second it.
Okay. So, John,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
and I say I vote yes as well. Thank you. Okay. So that was exciting, Amy. I know that we usually have a couple, but no, those looked great. So awesome. Okay. So for public comment, I don't know, was there any emails that came through, Michelle, on the email? All right.
No, last I checked, there were none.
Okay. And there's no one really here tonight from the public. So unless anything comes through, I guess we can move on to the statement of solidarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me pull that up on the screen.
Great. Thank you.
Just have to share it. Hang on. There you are. Okay. So thank you for considering this. This has been a great topic, as a lot of other things have been within the library and the library staff. And we were discussing a statement of solidarity and felt also that it would be appropriate for the Board of Library Trustees to issue a statement of solidarity. I crafted this document with some help, and I also did check in with Pastor Kyung from the current Korean Church of the Nazarene in Reading. We had been discussing this at the HREC meeting. Actually, we've been discussing it before the April 1st HREC meeting. And then in the April meeting was after the Georgia shootings, and it sort of rose to the top of issues for us to be concerned about within our community. So it is up on the screen for you to read. And I guess I'm just asking if the board would consider putting forth this statement as a group along with the library staff.
I think it's a great idea, and I entirely endorse it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I agree, Terry. I think it looks great.
Yeah, likewise, it's well written, and I think it's appropriate.
Okay.
I think it looks great. I don't know if I'm supposed to speak. I'm not sure, but I did read over it and it looks great.
Awesome.
I think you could speak. That's fine.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thanks, Monique. Yeah, I mean, Amy, so do we vote on this or yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to move forward with the to adopt the AAPI Statement of Solidarity? Oh, Amy, you're putting something in the chat. Thank you. Yeah, to motion to adopt the AAPI Statement of Solidarity as presented.
So moved.
So move.
Okay. Okay, so John,
Yes.
Cherry,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and I say yes as well. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I also want you to just mention that one of the things that we've been discussing, and Michelle, you can jump in if you want, because I think it's more something that's come out of the EDI group we have, is talking about how the library staff can respond adaptively to crises, whether it's something more at a national level or community level like this. We had some response obviously to last summer and the death of George Floyd. We have this now. We don't want to have to prepare for this, but there are other things that happen either in our community or in our nation where we want to be able to link people to either healing resources or places where they can find support in affinity groups. So this is something that's an active discussion amongst the staff in terms of how to provide resources and services. Obviously, we're not saying we would provide those services, but we can link up people with that and even have some response kits. Occasionally there are tragedies that happen in our schools, in our community, and we just want to be able to have some sort of template or framework. Part of that would be something like this, where we make sure that we have the town leaders and such as yourself behind this as we move forward with things. So that's much appreciated.
Did you want me to speak about some of the stuff we're doing? So we have a group and we're called the Justice League. So some of the things that we're doing are putting forth resources for parents, dealing with tough topics. We have something that's on our website and we keep adding to it. And it's being proactive so people know that they can come to us if they need resources. Whenever we do provide more information, we put it out there, and we also make sure people know that they can call the library, send messages to us, and that we're willing to help, willing and wanting to help people with that. We're working on having a place for people to come, like a quiet place for people to come. It'll be by Zoom for now, and just for people to meditate, get resources for meditation, and just learn how to handle situations like that. We're also looking to do more active bystander training and provide that to both staff and to the public. Trying to think what else we're doing. Just making sure that we stand up for things, being much more visible. We did something for the Trans Day of Visibility a few weeks ago, and we provided resources from the Human Rights Watch, I think, But just basically making sure people have information and different resources through the library.
Is that group, is the Justice League, is that specifically library employees or?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So there are people from every division, but I'm trying to think. Oh no, we do have someone from collection services. So there's somebody from every single division. We're also, one other thing that we're doing too, is we're going to put each staff member into groups where they can discuss different topics that they choose to talk about it. It's going to be good for us because it gives people an opportunity to discuss these topics, but it also gives us an opportunity to meet each other. There's a lot of new staff members, and so it'll also be a way for us to be more cohesive. So it serves a few different purposes.
That's great. I also love the name Justice League. You guys sound like superheroes.
We're a little nervous about, they're a little nervous about the trademarking there. That's why I was quiet about that.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I should say it, but yeah, that's. Anyway.
That sounds great. Yeah, and I like the idea of the staff being able to kind of meet each other and also talking about things that aren't necessarily only like library specific, but kind of connecting on a different level. I think that's great.
That's right. Yeah, we're excited about it.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle. All right. So, okay, the collection development policy for review.
I'm going to pull that up again. So there were two copies in your handouts. One was the sort of the whole thing that was all together, which is the final product, which is what we're asking for you to consider tonight. This is a policy. I'll let Jamie explain it. Penny is the head of collection services, and this is something that falls under her bailiwick. But as a policy, it is something that we need to have, or we should have in place, that explains how and why we select certain materials. It is part of the whole process should anyone challenge a piece of material or an item, and it had not been updated in quite a long time. It's probably something that should be revisited on a more regular basis. So we gave this to Jamie and her crew, and I'm going to let Jamie talk about what it is. We'll go through the completed one. There is a red line version if you want to see what changes, or I guess it's blue line version afterwards, but we'll start with this. So let me just share that.
So the one with the blue lines is the old one, right?
Yes, and it does have the same corrections if you want to compare and contrast, but the one that I'm sharing on the screen now, or the very first one, is really just the end product.
Okay. I want to look at the end product.
Yeah, there's a clean document that it does have blue in it. Like I've got a blue under the draft, and the appendices are highlighted in blue, but it doesn't have all the things we took out and the things we added in. It's just the clean document.
Jamie, can you see my screen?
I see an email. See your email.
Oh, you see my email? You don't want to see my email.
Don't.
Hi, Town of Reading. That was my email.
Well, while you look for that, I can just talk a little bit about, so yeah, best library practices really do require you to, it behooves us to have a collection development policy. And I don't know if some of you may remember that this was on the April 2020 agenda. And we were starting to work on it right when the pandemic hit, and then we just kind of shelved the whole thing. So here we are back looking at it again. Yeah, so the highlights of the things we really wanted to add in this particular version of the document included things like, digital resources. We really wanted to specifically mention digital resources and any really formats. We don't want to be too specific about formats because formats come and formats go. And, we feel like there'll always be print, but whatever the other resources are, we want this to help guide us in our decisions about those kinds of policies as well. And we also included a section about collecting more world languages, community languages. So we've done a couple surveys recently in the community about what languages are spoken in the schools, and we want to, take more input about that. And we want to start making sure we buy popular materials in community languages and not just the same, books we've had for decades. So we just decided to, oh, and the other thing we did was we removed a lot of the very detailed documentation that really belongs more properly in a procedures document. You know, you don't need to list every kind of item you collect for local history. That can go into a procedures document that doesn't need to be voted on by anyone. And the policy is supposed to be broad, but give us clear guidance, both in choosing materials and then also in defending them if somebody, you know, challenges them. And you'll see the policy also includes the request for reconsideration that patrons or anybody in the community can fill out if they want to challenge the material that we've chosen. And sometimes, you know, they may be, you know, we may decide to withdraw material, but we use the policy to help us make that decision. And that's really all I have to say about it generally. I don't know if people want to go through line by line or anything, but maybe we take a few moments to read it. How do you want to proceed, Amy?
Nina, do you have any? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, one question here is, are there, for the document we're looking at here, since we don't have the benefit of the red lines or blue lines, are there any major material changes to this that we should be aware of?
The material changes really involved a removal of a lot of very specific enumerated kinds of things, like, you know, the first little section that we took out said that we were going to offer youth an active library program designed to stress the value of reading and communicating. And we felt that that was very specific. And therefore we took that piece out. And then there was a lot of lists of the kinds of things we will use to make our decisions. For example, professional reviews, popular reviews, and we were listing all kinds of general interest magazines and how to order materials. And none of that really belonged in the policy. Oh, good. Are you showing it, Amy? Oh, she is. She's showing some of the redlined document. We took out a very extensive section under the local history section that talked about how we can collect manuscripts and archives and maps and audiovisual media. And we felt like we didn't really need to enumerate every kind of document because we don't, or a format, because we don't know what formats will come and go. We don't want to limit ourselves to the formats that are listed here. You want to be as broad as you can, but also give guidance. Amy, do you see any other kinds of major changes we took out?
Sorry,
there was, we did a lot of editing for grammar and removing the passive voice and things like that. That was a lot of it.
Yeah, so I think that was the bulk of it. The collections themselves are still, you know, mostly categorized sort of generally by age group and content. I think, yeah, I think it was really
right.
I think it was more language. You know, one of the things we tried to get across was that, you know, our materials are selected, and this has to do with, you know, how we structure ourselves as an organization. You know, our librarians are professional librarians. They've done training. They continue to do professional development. That is why they are, you know, on certain selection committees. Everybody every professional librarian has a section of the collection that they're responsible for thinking about, whether that's deaccessioning or adding to, refining the collection. So I think that was one of the things to make sure that people understood this as a professional staff, and it's not an automated necessarily selection process. There are products out there that are very data driven that can just look at your collection and look at what's circulating and then pick out books for you. Very specifically, we very specifically chose to say that our librarians make those, are ultimately responsible for those decisions, because while data is useful, we also know that we need to keep the human side to things.
Yeah, and then there are tools that we might consider using to assist us. Like, for example, a lot of vendors are doing like diversity audits, and there's bits of software that you can use. And I'm actually taking a workshop in April, a 3-day workshop on doing a diversity audit of your collection. And there are tools that will help you do that. But then the librarians make decisions about, you know, what to actually keep or get rid of, stuff like that. I was going to say something else and I've totally forgotten what it is. It'll come back to me. I'm sorry. I should have written it down. Diversity audit, I was going to mention that, which I did.
Okay.
You also notice that there's a couple of specific collections that are mentioned, and it's just sort of a broad statement that, yeah, there it is: the children's collection, the local history and genealogy collection, the periodicals collection in whatever form, the reference collection, the teen collection. We don't specify the adults collection; it's kind of like the default position, but that's, you know, the same principles hold true for all of that.
Out of curiosity, do you see the collection, I get maybe the best way to put it, the velocity of turnover in the collection increasing going forward?
Do you mean like the one that we're deaccessioning, you know, we're trying to keep the collection fresh? Because
I imagine you could look at a period of time. I mean, I don't know how often the physical collection would turn over. It probably takes a long time. Obviously, we're shifting more to digital, but I'm curious as to whether that's changing and how.
Yeah, we've done a lot of deaccessioning. We like to call it deaccessioning. I mean, colloquially we call it weeding, because it's like pruning your garden or weeding your garden. But yeah, we do weed all the time, and we have gotten to a place where we really are keeping our collection stable in numbers. We're not just adding. It's not directly one book in, one book out. I'm speaking of print mostly, but it is kind of like that. Of course, digital media is there's much less of a storage issue, so you can add.
But do you deaccession?
Go ahead.
Do you deaccession any of the digital stuff?
Well, the digital stuff is sort of programmed to run out after a certain period of time.
Okay.
So then you decide to re-up it. You know, you have only so many. There's a couple of models you'll get. For example, for an e-book or an e-audio book, you'll either have 1 year's worth of however many people want to take it out, or you'll have, you know, X number of circs over a year.
I see.
And the digital collection is interesting because, you know, some of you may have used it. It's Overdrive Advantage, and Noble itself has a very large. They collect a lot, and every library that belongs to Noble has a contribution to the Overdrive Advantage digital collection. And then we also choose titles for our own readers, which will go to. It's like having, you know, the books that go to Reading patrons first. We buy digital titles that will go to Reading patrons first. They can go really to anyone else in the state if a Reading person isn't waiting for it, but they go through the Reading holds first. So, and those, you know, we just actually started doing that heavily at the beginning of COVID because that's all we could do. We just were like pouring a lot of resources into the digital collection because nobody could come into the building.
The other thing is that to your question, John, about, you know, turnover of the collection, there's two things. One is when people do evaluate, when items are reviewed, there are very specific industry or professional guidelines that we do go by. So for example, a science book has a different longevity than say a criticism of literature. Some of that doesn't change as quickly, whereas Pluto's a planet or not a planet, and that, you know, we have to check those types of collections. Medical information gets turned over much more quickly as new information comes out. So there are standards and guidelines for each section that gets reviewed, and there are things. You know, we are seeing a shift. I don't think in terms of books are we seeing necessarily a purchase of less physical books. The digital copies are more of an and also. In terms of things like streaming video and streaming music, that's where we see the biggest potential for slowly getting, you know, not getting rid of, but that is a physical collection that probably won't grow too much more because just most everything is now going to be available for streaming, and we'll follow that trend. Having said that, we have a very, very strong international and foreign language DVD collection, which is used by many people all over Noble and other libraries because most other DVD collections have been traditionally just sort of the popular blockbuster movies. And it's actually a collection that we're rather proud of, I think. So as long as we're able to get those materials, as long as they're being issued on DVD, we feel that there's an audience for that. As they're, you know, some of them may not be available on DVD going forward, so we'll hold on to them as long as they can last. No media is ever final. Everything dies eventually. but I think we have a couple of those collections. Music CDs are probably the fastest dropping. Would you agree, Jamie, in terms
Yeah,
of
I think so.
circulation?
A lot of young people don't even have any means to play CDs.
Yeah.
They just stream music now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what happened with VHS tapes. We used to have a lot of VHS. We had a beautiful collection of VHS tapes. And then for a while we had to buy both VHS and DVD. And then finally we stopped buying VHS. They weren't even making them anymore. Nobody had a VHS player anymore. And, that's in the future of DVDs. Nobody can really predict how soon that might happen. And maybe there'll be some other physical format. There's always new formats to pop up.
So that's how, yeah. And then Jamie and I meet each year and throughout the year to reassess and reevaluate how much percentage of the budget goes into the digital materials versus the physical materials. And right about now, actually, we start really regulating what comes in and comes out because it's getting so close to the end of the fiscal year. So
I also did want to mention earlier something about this. So there'll be a collection statement that isn't as broad, that shouldn't be necessarily included in this policy, but there'll be a collection statement for each section of the collection, like Amy was referring to. We call them like the Dewey 500s and sometimes even the Dewey 10s. So for example, 500s is science. And as Amy said, those are, you want to get rid of all health books that are really more than 5 years old, sometimes 2 years old. But the literary criticism will live on. So every collection has its guidelines about how long to keep things, when a thing's out of date, and when to deaccession or weed things if they're either in terrible condition or the material is very outdated, or if you have a better copy of it somewhere else.
Jamie, I have a quick question about and this is a really small detail, but in terms of the language moving from young adult teen, is that just to keep it in line with like the current departments and, or is that like more of a trend of calling it teen that is just seen more widely in libraries now? Like, I'm just kind of curious about.
Well, it's funny because it's funny you should mention that. Young adult is kind of a library term, but there always has been a little bit of controversy about it because young adults are really like, for me, a 20-year-old is a young adult, not an 11-year-old, not a 12-year-old. So it's kind of like putting this sort of maturity on them that is unwarranted and unnecessary. So we always got teens. But yeah, YA is a very popular term and everybody knows what that is. And it's still very, very common in libraries. We feel like we're better trendsetters in that respect.
I think I agree with what Jamie said and she's spot on. And honestly, we with our strategic planning and, looking at some of the demographics, some of the places where we haven't, had market penetration or whatever the phrase was, are in what we call now emerging adults, which I think is what Jamie's calling a young adult, right? So these are 18 to 28-year-olds, that are, a lot of them right now are home living with their parents from college. And so they're people that are not going to be using the library for help with school or for anything else, but have other social things there. It's not a target-rich environment, meaning it's a difficult group to reach, but it's definitely a group that needs support. Statistically, it's also a group, according to the Pew Research Center, that really does believe in libraries and likes having books versus digital information. So,
yeah, kind of the conventional wisdom is that you grow up in a suburb and then you go off to college, and you live away for a while. And, you're in your 20s and maybe your 30s and you're out in the urban environment, living in the big city. And then you move back to the suburbs when you have kids. So that 20 to early 30s is a group that, it's not a dense population in Reading, but they're the ones that are there really do like to come into the library. And, that's why we're not going to have an inordinate amount of our budget dedicated to that group, but we definitely don't want to ignore them. And, conventional wisdom is often wrong, or at least there's a million exceptions to it. It's not that it's wrong, but there are a million exceptions.
Yeah, I like the changes. I like that some of the extra language around like the examples of materials and, is taken out. I think it makes it just cleaner, but also gives the library staff a little bit more leeway to kind of take things as a case by case you know, to see how things are going. It kind of just makes the policy seem a little bit more like have more longevity, I guess, because
and more flexibility.
Yeah. So I think it looks good.
Do you want us to vote on this tonight, or do you want to defer this until the next meeting, or how's this going to work?
It's up to you. We're having discussion, and you can either, if you're comfortable with it, you could vote on it. If someone feels moved.
Now, do we have to also take into consideration the reconsideration policy? I mean, does it all go together as one package? Are you?
Yes, in general, that form does generally all go together, although if you want to just vote on the actual collection development policy and then come back another time and revisit that challenge document, I mean, that is also a little bit antiquated. I think it says, like, I don't know, there's just some question on there, like it's like writing a book review. Why do you think? It is important to have a challenge document. I think that's one of the big pieces of procedure that we do need to have. It can't be just, someone can't just come in and say, I don't like this, you should get rid of it. We do ask that they make a very specific case to why they feel it should not be in our collection. So the Library Bill of Rights is the Library Bill of Rights from the ALA, so that doesn't need any changes. But the document, another document you could change would be that challenge document form.
Yeah. Yes, I didn't really work on that, as I viewed it as an appendix. So feel free to approve one and not the other, and we can do further work on it. Plus, I also do want to give some credit to Catherine Jeffrion-Scannell, who really helped me work on this a lot. I mean, everybody in the staff did, but she and I really sat down and went through every word. So I just want to give her some special consideration.
Thanks, Jamie.
Sure.
I mean, do people feel like they, you know, would like more time to kind of think about these, or do people feel comfortable voting them in tonight?
They both seem pretty reasonable to me. I don't see anything that stands out as something that we should be hesitant about.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way, Cherry.
I wonder if you want me to recuse myself and go away, because, you know, I won't hurt or anything, but, you know, I did work on it. So I can leave if you'd like, if that makes things more proper or
I mean, I don't.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like I think the changes are seem like they make the policy just clearer, if anything, you know, and easier to kind of understand. So I mean, I feel comfortable voting on it, but of course, if anyone would like more time, we can certainly.
And I will say also that it's, you know, we looked at a lot of other library policies too. Nothing in here is too outrageous, except for the use of the word teen instead of young adults. You know, it's in keeping, it's not anything extremely radical. So it's not like a whole new world of collection development.
I will say this, I don't know if this would affect anyone's desire to make a motion this evening, but this is sort of the last big policy that I had been hoping to get through, in terms of, you know, we do revisit the meeting room policy now every year, and, you know, there's tutoring and some other things that are our lending policy and that kind of thing. We've now kind of, this was the last big thing that we felt that we really needed to make sure was sort of brought into the 21st century. That, you know, I'm very excited to have it before you this evening.
Okay.
No pressure though.
Right.
No pressure.
Well, so do we have, well, okay, so I guess vote on it. It sounds like no one has any objections to taking a vote tonight, right? So do we have a motion to adopt the collection development policy as was presented this evening?
So moved.
So move. Andrew, you and I keep stepping on each other.
Okay, so Cherry?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And I say yes as well. So
Thank you.
Phew, thank
Now,
you.
do we have to do the other one too? The reconsideration, or whatever it's called.
is that's a separate one? Does on one.
It's like an addendum, so you can.
It's an
Yeah.
addendum. An appendix.
Cherry, how do you feel about that? Were you looking at that and saw some things you'd like to change, or was that?
No. I was perfectly okay with the reconsideration as it's presented.
Mhm.
So if you want to do it as a package and we just voted for both of them, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah, they seem like they.
Yeah,
seem
it was all included, so it was presented too. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. So,
Just out of curiosity on the whole reconsideration thing, how's our Dr. Seuss collection these days?
It's a great question.
So we had we did not at the time that the estate withdrew those books. We did not have any of those books in our collection. They had already been deaccessioned for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure if it was specifically decided or not, but I have noticed a little bit of an uptick in, like, I run this old holds list, things that people have been waiting for a long time. And there's a couple of people that are on this list for DVD of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I thought that's funny, but it also includes, I saw it on Mulberry Street, which is one of the challenge books. I think people are trying to see it and see what it says. And maybe they don't remember what it was. So I don't know what the motivation is, but other libraries have it and we're happy to lend it to them. They are entitled to, we're not canceling Dr. Seuss. You can still get it. We just don't have them.
Thank you.
Question, Andrew.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jamie, for all of that. That was great.
Thanks for having me.
You may be excused.
Thank you. Have a nice evening, everybody. And
Bye,
congratulations
You
again.
too.
Jamie. I look forward to meeting you face to face someday. I'm in the dungeon, so just come down and visit. All right, now it's going to take me a while to leave the meeting because I'm on my iPad. Oh, there it is. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
It's always nice to have visitors.
Yes. So moving on to the update, the community partnership update for the Little Free Library and the food pantry.
So I can answer this. So we just heard back from Monette. She spoke to the food pantry director, and we are a go for the 2 food drives that we're going to do this summer. So we're going to do one in May. It'll be May 1st to right before Memorial Day. And then over the summer, we're going to do another that will work together with the summer reading program. So I think that's going to start the same day as summer reading, June 21st. And I don't know how long that's going to go. So there will be information coming out about that. So we are going to do that. We're going to get a list of needs from the director of the food pantry and send that information out to the public. We'll be collecting items at our curbside pickup, and I think with the food pantry one for the summer reading, there may be awards that go with it. So that's in the works. And I guess that the food pantry itself is going through some changes. And so when they heard about the little food pantry that we wanted to do, they were excited about it, but they are reassessing how they're just reassessing, I guess, their whole being. I'm not really sure. So we have to put a hold on the little food pantry. So that's not going to be going forward, at least as of now.
For those of you who don't know, the Little Food Pantry would be the same idea as a Little Free Library, in that it would be a structure placed on library property where there could be basically a drop off or pickup of certain food, non-perishable food items with the understanding that sometimes folks are not always comfortable, or you obviously couldn't do a whole week shop or something that you would normally do at a food pantry, but it would be for smaller little things. It's not uncommon, you're seeing things like this happen. Sometimes they're in places like laundromats, or, there's a lot of other places but on the library property, we had wanted to do something that was a little more permanent. But that is, as Michelle said, on hold. So
there is one more thing I wanted to say, because Nina's here. And I know you work with MSPCA. Because of the summer reading theme, or one of the things we're going to do with the summer reading thing, it's Tales To
Tails
tails.
and tails and trails.
Tails and tails and tails.
Tails and tails. You're right.
So we're going to also be collecting food for pets. So it might all be going to the food pantry, but we might need to know about what shelters are looking for too. So I think. Anyway,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I got that out there too. So that's what's happening with it. I'm so excited.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Yeah, and I mean, as far as like, I know that the MSPCA has like their own like community food, you know, if they don't use it, get it to people who do need it based on need in the greater, you know, Merrimack community. So that's awesome. They'll be excited about that. Okay, great. Thanks, Michelle. So the next item is the holiday closing. So for Juneteenth, and I believe this is related to the Saturday schedule, right, Amy?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so just this year, effective this year, Juneteenth is a state holiday. I'm just bringing this before the Board of Trustees, and you all can decide how and when, as you do every year. So every June, just for Monique, for your edification, every year around about June, we look to the next calendar year and we mark off, the trustees approve all the days of closure. They usually include all the days that employees get off, and there's also a few extras. So an example would be the day before Thanksgiving, which is always a Wednesday. We have traditionally always closed at 1 p.m., partly because, you know, people are traveling and getting ready for Thanksgiving, and partly because nobody ever comes in. Whereas the day after Thanksgiving, we're always swamped. So there is a give and a take to how people decide to do that. The same thing usually happens for New Year's Eve and for Christmas Eve, unless it falls on, you know, if Christmas Eve fell on a Sunday. I mean, Christmas fell on a Sunday this year, New Year's Day fell on a Sunday. So rather than only being open half a day on a Saturday, the library was closed. So the trustees have the discretion to open or close the library services on a specific day. Other examples would be Labor Day and Memorial Day weekend. Normally, most libraries just have the Monday off, but it's the 2 weekends a year that the entire staff, the whole library is closed Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for those 2 holiday weekends, which gives the staff some time off. So according to the state, if a holiday falls on a Sunday, it must be observed on Monday. If it falls on a Saturday, it's observed on the Saturday, but the trustees could also decide to have the library closed on the Friday so that it can be observed. The reason why the library is so unusual is because we are open sometimes 7 days a week from October to May, but in the summertime and all the other 9 months of the year, wherever every month it is, people work sometimes 6 days a week. So if I'm only working Monday through Friday, but my holiday is on Saturday, I'm going to have to take a day off during the week to get my holiday hours anyway. So it's partly a convenience, it's partly a perk, but it's also partly just a practical thing, because staffing becomes a problem when you have 33 people that are eligible to take a day off during that week, but it's being celebrated on Saturday and only 6 people are working. So there's some logistics to that. You know, Juneteenth is not particularly, it's brand new. It's not a holiday where people are going to be traveling, you know, presumably, you know, having to catch flights to go see their family or something like that. But it is a recognized state holiday, just as Patriots Day is. So this year, I just wanted to revisit it and ask the trustees and see if you had any opinions or thoughts about, we would have to be closed on the 19th. And there is the option to also vote to have Friday the 18th closed if you wish, although it's not mandatory. So I just wanted to give that to you all to consider.
Thank you for the information, Amy.
Yeah, thank you. That is helpful. I mean, I think that you know, I'm just kind of thinking it through, thinking about this, because it is kind of I'm feeling like, you know, in one hand, you know, I know that kind of year is like the end of the school year. You know, I don't know. This year is also so different too in terms of
Yeah.
like who's coming in. It's like everything's kind of weird this year in general. But you know, I know that typically in the end of June, you know, there's a lot of students who are like looking for either space or, you know, services from the library, but I don't know if that's different this year, I guess, because of COVID. So I don't know, maybe that isn't as applicable this year because maybe people won't be using the space as much for like studying and things like that. But that was kind of one thought that I had. It seems like that's kind of a year where there's a lot of students who are looking for something from the library, whether it's that space or some sort of materials.
I'll also say that this type of thing only happens once every 7 years for any of these holidays that move around, you know, so like it only happens to Veterans Day once in a while, and it only happens something like this. The holidays that always fall on a very specific, you know, like on a Monday, or that doesn't ever affect us. It's just like Veterans Day and the eves.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, so I guess we're deciding then if we are going, so we're definitely obviously closed on the 19th in observation of the holiday, but we're kind of deciding tonight whether Friday should be, you know, a regular day as usual or closed. So, I mean, does anyone have a strong opinion in one way or the other about this that, you know, people are thinking?
Amy, the question you actually just kind of raised it. What happens when Veterans Day falls on a Saturday right now? Do we take observe Friday?
Last time that happened, we closed on a Friday. I believe we closed on a Friday. I can double check, but I'm pretty sure we did. Again, it just the way the library staff works, everybody works all of their hours pretty much for the week, and then they rotate their Saturdays. So the week they work Saturdays are always like sort of extra hours, as it were. So it just worked out nicely when it was on a Saturday that people got to take the Friday off. We didn't have to try and say no to people when they wanted to take that Friday off because they earned the holiday. They're owed those holiday hours, 7.5 or whatever the number of hours are. So it was just logistically easier.
I think we also are trying sometimes to make things a little bit more equitable based upon the way the town hall works, where they only work 4 days a week anyway.
Yeah, they work long days those 4 days, but they
I understand that, but still they get a 3-day weekend every week.
Yeah. So, and to, you know, there are people, like I said, that pretty much everybody works every third Saturday. So that's, you know, not.
So I have a question, Amy. If there was in the rotation, if there was a staff person who, for, you know, reasons of holiday observance, hypothetically, you know, wanted to not work on, actually, no, because Saturday would be closed. So never mind. I'm like asking my own question. I was wondering if there would be just a way to like shift it, but I guess that doesn't really apply.
Yeah.
Because
it's hard because we're such a cross between a retail establishment and an office building, right? So if we were an office building, it would be different, but if we were Kohl's, it would be different as well. So, and we would be able to actually be open. I think some retailers can be open. You know, you can be open. So, but it is a holiday that town employees will get off. So, you know, town staff will get off. So it's entirely up to you. And you can even think about it and come back to us in May, or I suppose, or even June, because it's going to be that before the meeting. I just wanted to raise it up because it is so new, and it's not something that it's not. I don't think we really thought about it last year when we had it on the calendar. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can think about it. I mean, I know. I am inclined to say, you know, to open on the Friday just in case for, you know, especially as we're nearing the end of the school year. You know, I know that there's students, again, I know this year is a weird year anyway for that, like I said. So I'm not sure if that is even, but.
Do we know when school's getting out this year?
Good question. I don't.
I mean, it's pretty close to the end of the year.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, the school should be over by then, but because they went, there was like one snow day.
True, yeah.
So, well, how about this? How about we just leave it for now, and then if anyone has any, thoughts before at May or June, and someone wants to change it. Right now, I'll leave it that we're just closed on the Saturday, and then if anything changes, we'll change it, and we'll work. We can definitely work with the schedules. And we handle this very rarely. Every time this ever happens, we have a long discussion, and sometimes it goes one way, and sometimes it goes the other way. So, and the staff are generally, they're pretty amenable, I think.
Okay.
So
yeah, so maybe we can always revisit. We can check in about it next month,
Yep.
but I guess for now we can just kind of table it.
Ed has a question.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry.
The last day of school is the Monday.
Oh,
The Monday after.
the 21st.
Yep.
Thank you, Ed.
No worries.
Okay. So yeah, so there may be some folks coming around. So, all right.
Okay, so yeah, so for the financial update, Amy.
Oh yeah, so now I get to the really breezy stuff. I do want to say that the first thing is that thank you, while I have you here, Ed, thank you very much to the Finance Committee for approving. I know you approved the whole town budget, but that does include the library's budget with, I think it was like a 7.1 increase for fiscal year 22. In general, there's nothing major to report for fiscal year 21. We are running under budget for our salaries, and we will be turning back money on our salaries, mostly because through a lot of the, like our Sundays normally are shorter than they were budgeted for. So we're open only 1:30 to 4:30, I think, and normally people work about 4 or 5 hours with opening and closing, and we're normally open 1 to 5. So we saved a significant amount of money on our Sundays this year, and then with a lot of the turnover and retirements that we've had gaps of months to 2 months between hiring. So we're looking very good with our salary. We will meet our, I believe, Jamie and I were just parsing out all of those little details to make our annual materials expenditure. Town meeting will be on April 26th, and Thursday, April 29th will be the budget discussion. I just want to have you guys put that on your calendar. There is discussion that parts of the library budget may be challenged, the salary budget may be challenged, and there may be a motion to either cut or eliminate or change the salary budget specific, with some ideas about the equity position. So that's Thursday, April 29th. Again, the budget was presented to select board. They don't vote on it. It was balanced by Bob, the town manager, and then presented to the Finance Committee, who approved it on March 17th. Let's see here. I guess it's only a 4.1. I can't remember what the overall is. It's 4.1 and 7.8, but it's a larger than normal increase ask because of a new position. We do have the trust funds, year-to-date interest for the trust funds. I'm sorry, that's year-to-date for the fiscal year is $8,000. So we've had a net increase in those 6, I think there are 7 trust funds. The money is coming in slowly and is mostly set aside for materials should we need it. We did receive, thank you, Monette. I'm gonna get this. This is gonna be really hard to have a Monette and a Monique. Monette and Nina came in to do a picture, and the North Shore Bank, which is the new bank in the square, it's not that new, but it's been around. I think they opened and then COVID hit. They had done an employee collection and were able to donate $1,000, and I'll come back to that amount in a little bit. Are there any questions about the financial report? No. Okay.
Can you just, say the dates again that we should?
April 29th, Thursday, April 29th. That's the date. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll move on to the director's report and we can get out of here pretty quickly, hopefully. Employees have started to receive vaccines. We have a number of employees who are sort of over the 55, and I know some of our trustees are also in the midst of getting their vaccines. We're all very excited. We really hope to move to no appointment browsing, leaving appointments for PCs and study desks only because that requires a lot more sort of the protocols for cleaning and health and safety are a little more detailed. Right now, the state is still recommending 24 hours for any materials that have been out of the building that come back into the building. Not requiring, they're recommending, I should say. So we're still at a minimum of 24-hour quarantine for all of our materials that get returned. We do want to expand to no appointment browsing so people can just kind of walk in. We hope to do that sort of near the end of April, but we're still waiting. We'd like a few more staff members who are vulnerable employees quarantined before we start increasing the numbers of people in the building. We are watching that very closely. We expect by the time summer reading starts that we will have the soft seating back. So that means you'll be able to come in without an appointment, browse and sit down, you know, presumably read a magazine. This all is dependent on the trends, obviously going with both vaccines and with, particularly in Reading, we watch the trends that come out on the weekly report from the Mass Department of Health. So the first step is to get rid of some of the appointments and just allow people to come in. The second sort of full step would be allowing them to come in without appointments and actually sit and stay for a while. So the biggest thing is that even at capacity, 50% capacity, it's probably more people than we normally have on any given day. The biggest thing that we're struggling with right now is how and when to bring back some in-person programming, which for a lot of our littles in the community is a really important connection piece, you know, especially those littles that are in school. And, you know, to be able to be in a learning environment with other small children is really helpful for families. So, but hopefully we can move that outside. To that, and going back to the $1,000 donation from the North Shore Bank, we do want to have some sort of canopy shelters out on the school street side of the lawn. The original intent was to rent a 20 by 30 canopy. It would be open on all sides. It would be professionally either nailed down or using huge cement blocks or something, which is a sort of an upcharge that we could do. It's a little complicated because because it's considered a temporary structure, we do have to get building permits and all sorts of other things. The larger it is, the more hoops we have to jump through. So we will be going for a DRT review, which is a departmental review team, which we meet with police and fire and DPW and facilities and everybody and their spouses and partners and everything to, you know, make sure that everything is to code, that no one's going to get hurt, that's not going to blow away or whatever. The town, you know, even as a town department, I guess technically we don't have to do all that, but we always do. We always hold ourselves to the same standards that we would hold a business or a resident. So we will do that on next week. And we think a better alternative instead of having a 20 by 30 single tent would be to find two flattish locations that would house either two 15 by 15 tents or two 20 by 20 tents. We don't anticipate putting a lot of furniture in there. There's not going to be, you know, if there is, we're just going to bring out some folding chairs and then bring them in at night. There's not going to be anything permanently there. Little ones will probably just sit crisscross applesauce on the ground or a towel. People could bring their own folding chairs if they want, but it's just a way to have some space outside that would be primarily providing shade. I think if the weather is poor, we still probably wouldn't even use the outdoor space, but you know, it gets awfully hot. It's on the east side of the building, southeast side, so it gets quite a bit of sun on that side, and there's not a whole heck of a lot of shade. But where the trees are, it's very tilted. So we're working on that, but we do have to get permits and things like that. And we'll be doing that next week. And that's what we'll be using the funds from the North Shore Bank to fund the rentals of those tents. Or if we get 15 by 15s, maybe we'll purchase them. We just don't want to have to put up a tent and put it down and put it up and put it down. We just want to have something that's sort of installed for less than 90 days, but basically for the month of July and a little bit in June and a little bit in August. For the building, I'm really excited that Reading Club has reached out. They received a grant and they want to take care of and get some plants for all of the planters that are on the parking lot side of the building. They're going to buy them, install them, and help us take care of them for the first 3 weeks, just to make sure they get established. And then we'll take over, we'll have a volunteer take over of the watering. So it'll be just a nice little beautification that we can do fairly low. They did have to ask me for permission, which I thought was funny. I was like, really, you're asking me to put flowers out? I just walked in, a very busy month. So for anyone who thinks that we're closed, we had 900 browsing reservations, almost 300 study desk reservations, over 200 PC reservations in the last month of March. Our circulation for March was called, set up, and has something status page for parenting resources for tough topics. And it's just something that we found more and more of a need for within our community. We have a new high school page, and we're very excited for that. And we also just today, we welcomed Lindsay Mancuso, who's our newest library associate for the borrower services team. She'll be working she's one of our very few casual workers. Most everybody is 20 hours and above. And if you have ever had questions about the classification plan or compensation plan, those are all available on the town website. And then finally, I just included a very brief list of things that our employees are taking part of throughout the month. This is only a very small snapshot. I'm pretty sure actually every employee at some point does some amount of professional development, whether it's just mobile training or how to use their catalog, how to put reserves on, to attending things like the Hate Crimes in Massachusetts forum that was held. We had a number of people from our staff attend that to become more aware of the legislation that's going before the state. Cybersecurity is something that's being done town-wide. Civil legal justice services, how do we offer resources? How can we connect people with resources for legal services? It's been a very, very busy month.
Because it's the best library in America.
It's the best library in America.
That's right. Everybody knows that.
Everybody does. You were quoted, actually. Alice quoted you.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, my internet is giving me unstable warning, so I might freeze on you all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think that brings us just to other business, right, Amy? If there's anything else.
I just had a couple quick things. Well, I have one quick thing. Cherry asked me, I'm sorry, I mean, I shouldn't have said Cherry, but somebody on the board asked me.
It's okay.
About, I'm so terrible at this, about when we could meet again in person. So I ran that by Bob, and he has to run it by command and the Board of Health. But we think that it's reasonable that, by June, if not May, we might be able to meet in person. There's a couple things we do need to make sure. Number one is that not only everybody involved is physically spaced, but that we have a capacity to fit a certain number of public members. So like the meeting room space would probably be okay. The big meeting room would be okay because we could have about up to 10 people. But even if we have that, we would also, especially since it's still COVID, we would need to work with IT, town IT, and probably RCTV to make sure there is the ability to somehow zoom in or call in, so that if someone is not feeling safe to come to a public meeting but really wants to have some public comment, that they would have a mechanism for doing that. So there's a little technical piece that we would have to work out, but it is entirely possible that we could meet in person. I say as early as May, but it's occurring to me that we're now like in the middle of April, and I'm nervous to commit to May, but maybe to shoot for the June meeting to be meeting in person. And again, at that point, maybe more of our staff will have had vaccines if they would like it, or you all would have had vaccines if you had wished to. So I think that might be something, Nina, you can do on a straw poll, and let me know how we want to move forward for the June meeting. And then if you want to try for in person, you can let me know.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. All right. Any other business tonight before we adjourn for the evening? No. Okay. Okay. So do we have a
I had one quick question. Sorry, I was on mute there.
Yeah.
Amy, you mentioned that they're still having you do the sort of quarantine of books that come back from the public. The CDC did just announce last week that there's the chances of catching COVID from a surface is virtually nil. And
Yes.
you talk to them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we just need to wait. I'm hoping that the state will update sector guidelines for libraries. And I think you probably could read it as being that the materials are sort of recommended to be quarantined for 24 hours. I think in the next couple weeks, we'll have very specific sector guidance updated from the, either from the state or the Mass Board of Library Commissioners will issue something. I think I know of libraries that are still quarantining things for a week, which we got rid of a long time ago. So, we're pretty anxious to do that, because once we get rid of that quarantine, we can use the self-return. Everybody can come in and drop off their own books. We don't have to quarantine it. Which is why we don't do that now. So as soon as we can finagle that, Andrew, I'll put that down to relook at the language in the sector guidelines, because I think, Michelle, do you agree that's something that's pretty high up on our list of?
Yes.
Yeah. We don't want to have to, we don't want to have, yeah. I mean, I know some places that are taking their newspapers and they have like a UV wand, and then they wand the paper every so many times. And I think what we have really not struggled with, one of the things we've really just emphasized is that whatever you do, go wash your hands. Whatever you do, we've added more hand sanitizers. We have wipes for people to wipe down their desks or their seats. So we have kind of gone towards more like cleanliness and self-responsibility, self-accountability, versus trying to manage that. So my goal would be by the time summer reading starts that there's no quarantine. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Sounds good.
Yes, we have a lot of fomite discussions at the library. The ironic thing being is that you could probably catch the flu a year ago, 2 years ago, from materials too. I mean, yeah. I'm all for not handling most of the materials. I'm all for washing your hands after you touch anything in the library. So that's always been something that we recommend.
All right. Okay, so if anyone else has any last minute business, if not, then we can do we have a motion to adjourn for the night?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through. So John?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Cherry?
Yes.
And I say yes as well. Okay,
right.
That is it for the evening.
All right.
Thanks.
Again, Ed, thanks for coming by. Monique, I'm glad you could be here tonight.
Yes, thanks, Ed, for joining, and welcome, Monique. We're excited to have you. So hope everyone has a good rest of the night.
Okay.
Great.
Night.